Hi, and welcome to Classical Stuff You Should Know, a new podcast.
It's our first episode.
It's our first episode. No,
I thought you were going to say A New Hope, like the second episode of Star Wars.
Season 2.
Is this season 2?
No, we already did season 2. It was the quarantine stuff.
Oh, that's right.
This is season 3?
First of all, let's intro. Classical Stuff You Should Know. We are a podcast about classical education, the classical world, old things, learning stuff, and yeah.
Okay.
That's what we like. That's what we do.
We're, 150 episodes in and we still don't have the intro nailed down. So
Yeah.
okay, good, great.
Right.
But first of all, I'd like to say just a big thank you to you, gents. AJ, for your quarantine stuff you should know. They were great. Did a good job.
Grand promises and scant delivery.
Well, I mean, it's just par for the course. For
Ouch.
a podcast. Not for
Are you insulting AJ right now? Yeah. This is pretty normal.
That's just par for the course, I guess.
No, I
This is
just
how
mean
AJ
like
is.
par for the course for everybody in the world.
Wow.
For our listeners,
it was par for the course for 2020.
I did realize that a daily podcast was a huge commitment.
Yeah,
It was
Joe
taking-
Rogan, man, hats off.
It was taking a massive amount. Well, he's got cronies to help him
That's
edit,
true.
splice, and post.
I think you mean employees. Cronies?
When you pay him, you can call him
Whatever you want
to.
to. Okay, great.
Anyway, but we got lots.
But then I went to Washington for like a month, and so I just wasn't near my recording.
But they were
equipment.
fun. They were good.
Yep.
And Megby, your thoughts from Purgatory were great.
Okay, thanks.
And actually, it inspired me to start reading Dante during the lockdown.
Oh, great.
I was reading a canto a day, but I'm only in. I'm just in the place where they put all the corrupt politicians in the jar of pitch.
Oh yeah,
You're still in
think
the
it's
inferno then.
2021.
grafters where they stab him with
Pitchforks.
forks and the the malibranch.
Yeah, and then the big demon farts at the end of the book.
Malakota, right?
Yeah.
Evil Tale.
I bet the ninth graders loved that book.
I tell him, I'm like, listen, it says the A word. Let's be adult about it.
Because
Let's grow up a little bit, which means they are going to giggle all by themselves
I love it.
forever.
Anyway, so
I feel like the adult response is to laugh at that. Isn't that? Yeah, because I'm sure you're
I actually think that what I really do is just like, and then we're skipping on to this part over here, and they just never know that it exists. I just don't draw attention to it.
but we're back.
Smart.
Spring break is done, and our
wow.
our
You mean our 4-month spring break?
I know. Our freeze out is over. Anyway, for those of you who listen to us and enjoy us, yeah, it's been crazy times in Texas with the lockdown, school shut down, and then the state lockdown, and now cases are still, they're falling, which is really good, but it was some crazy times. And we love podcasting together, and so at the beginning, maybe we sort of like were foolish in saying, we'll just wait a couple of weeks till this blows over. We won't podcast on Zoom or whatever, and then we just stuck to that. So anyway, we're back, and here we are. But we haven't been idle while we were locked down. We've been planning some stuff. But anyway, Megby, today you are going to talk to us about how you are, grifting? Is that, no, what is it?
Yeah. Does that bother you? We're going to talk about cronyism today, right?
Isn't that why those guys are in the pitch in the first place?
Oh, gosh.
that a
Yes,
bad
it
thing?
is.
They're grafters, right?
So you're saying that's bad.
Grafters or grifters?
Grifters.
They're
isn't it?
grafters.
Grafters?
No, grafters are like
things
plastic
that-
surgeons.
Oh.
Yeah, skin grafts. I get you, but I think this is a different definition of grafting, which is weird. It's like it's kind of like simony,
Pretty
except
sure-
it's with political office.
Isn't it grifting?
No, grifting is a different thing. That's where I'm like, try to see the ball in the cups, and I switched around the cups, and then you're like, it's in that one.
grafter.
What? Are
I
you?
want my money after.
These aren't songs. What are
Oh,
you?
sorry.
Did you make that song up?
I did.
Okay. Grifting is engaging in petty or small-scale swindling. Graft is you're selling office, right?
Oh, okay.
Isn't that graft?
Man.
Yeah. And simony is specifically
Church office.
church office.
I
yeah.
stand corrected.
How do you spell nightmare?
N.
We are in agreement so far.
NITEMAHR, right?
Yep, nailed
Nightmare.
it. Yep, nailed it. Okay. I guess I can start my rambling.
Yes, you can.
Okay, good.
I believe
So,
it was droning.
are you referencing my favorite email that we received?
I apologize.
Yeah, there's nothing to apologize for. Listener, if you care to brave it, anyway, whatever. I have boring episodes, is what
They were
Graham is saying.
good.
Great. Okay. So, in the same topic of droning, today we are going to be talking about patronage. Patronage is the general topic for today. I guess I can go into why I picked this topic in the first place. Gentlemen, when you all hear the word patronage, what first comes to mind? What are you thinking of?
Renaissance art.
Yep.
I think of like Medici's and then like schools in Florence getting money to paint stuff.
The first thing that comes to mind is that guy who hired Michelangelo to make his tomb with something like, wasn't it like 40 figures on it?
It's crazy.
Like different statues. And then he only got through like 19 and then The guy kicked the bucket, I think, before he was done. Something like that.
So Michelangelo didn't finish it?
Yeah,
He's
no,
like,
the guy's dead now. So what's the point?
I don't think it ever got fully finished, but it was this huge planned piece, and then it just stalled in the works. Or maybe he couldn't pay for it. I think that's what happened. Is Michelangelo got part of the way through, and then the guy's like, I'm too poor now.
It's actually, that example is funny because in reading about this, normally artists would get their patronage ahead of time and then do the work. And so it's what you just said. I wonder if they paid for a certain amount, then he died. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like that was the end of it. So he wasn't going to work anymore after that. It was good.
I mean, I wouldn't. It
makes sense.
Kind of, I don't know. Love of the art, guys. Isn't that what it's really about?
Gotta eat.
I guess that is important too.
Yeah.
My first time of thinking about this topic in any serious way was about a year and a half ago at this point. So dream back with me, gentlemen, to a time before I had a child, before there was a quarantine in effect, before there was a global pandemic, and travel was like a thing that was possible. My wife and I traveled to Boston over New Year 2 New Years ago. We did that because we wanted to go see snow for the new year, but unfortunately it rained. It did not actually snow. It was very depressing. As a part of our trip up to Boston, we took a stop at the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum.
Where in the city is that?
Heck if I know.
Oh, okay.
Are you familiar with Boston?
Yeah. There's the museum that's like right on the east side of the city, close to the water. That's the only one I know that I can
don't remember there being water nearby.
It's pronounced Baston.
Thank you. I'm so sorry. I'll try and do better for the rest of this episode.
Yeah, buddy.
There's a park next to it. I'm pulling up a map, which is riveting for podcast listeners. Guys, how are you enjoying? It's kind of close. I mean, isn't all of Boston kind of near the water?
Actually,
now that
but I mean, like,
it's not on the water though.
So you went to this museum.
So anyway,
and had the wall of donors.
No, actually, I'll give you the name again. The Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum. Do you want to guess who was like foundational to this museum existing?
Is that Queen Isabella?
No, it's not. The woman's name is
1 for 1. I mean, 0 for 1. Sorry.
That's 0 for 1, just to be clear. No, the woman's name is in fact Isabella Stewart Gardner. That's her full name. Born Isabella Stewart, eventually married into the Gardner family.
Well, it's like Joe Veritas who gave all this money.
Yes, to Veritas Academy, which is where our name ultimately comes from, obviously.
Turns out he was a dirty liar, that guy, which is a misnomer. Veritas.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
A thing that, listener, I don't know if you know, you two, I don't know if you all know, this museum is famous for an art theft that took place there. So I think in the 90s.
Is that the one where the guy stole all the birds? No, that's the Natural History Museum.
No. But did you
hear about that?
Did you listen to a podcast episode about that? Because a guy like stole all these birds and then, anyway, he sold off the feathers one by one, right?
He
like,
was
took
a fish lure tire, and they had he was part of this whole society that tied fish lures.
Right.
And so he ran this heist where he stole a bunch of bird specimens from the Natural History Museum.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then
because their feathers were perfect for the lures.
Well, because they were endangered birds.
Right.
And you literally
these.
couldn't get them anymore. And he was part of this like ancient society of adventurers that would go and steal all these. So he got them, sold them all, and then they didn't realize for like 2 months that the birds were even gone.
Right.
Wow.
And then they can't get him back.
Right.
They didn't convict him.
He made fish lures out of them.
Or no, they did convict. I forget, but yeah, he apparently sent them in packets all over, and they tried to get some back, and all the fishing community guys were like, "We don't know where they went."
Right.
So.
Crazy.
I forget if he was convicted or he turned himself in. I'm trying to remember.
I forget.
I don't remember.
But anyway,
I think that's a This American Life episode, isn't it?
Yeah. That sounds right.
Yeah, go check it out.
Yeah.
It's great.
It's
a great episode.
Go listen to podcasts, except listen to ours first.
So is this like the Thomas Crown Affair? Is that what happened?
Tell me
Remember that Pierce Brosnan movie?
No. Are we on tangent train right now? Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm going to tell you why we went to this museum in the first place, and then I hope you all make fun of me. The most famous exhibit, according to whatever research we did before going there, is a blank exhibit. It's a picture frame with no picture inside of it. During this art heist, there were 13 pieces that were stolen from the collection, valued today at over $500 million. $500 million.
Whoa.
2 people showed up. They were dressed as guards. They showed up 1 a.m. Like the morning after St. Patrick's Day. It's like, anyway. So like during St. Patrick's Day celebrations,
this gets more and more Boston the way more you talk.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's actually how they were able to sneak in, is because there was so much like hubbub from the St. Patrick's Day celebrations that like no one was really paying attention. And they entered and they were able to steal 13 pieces, again, valued at $500 million. They stole 3 works of Rembrandt. That's like the main thing that they were apparently after. So Rembrandt, Manet, Degas were a part of the collection that was stolen.
Have they popped up around the world?
The pieces have not been found, and no one has been convicted as a part of these thefts. So if it's not the largest unsolved art heist, it's the most recent, the largest, most recent unsolved art heist, if that's the right way to say it. So that's what originally kind of piqued our interest to go check that out.
So you said there's an empty. So the
to commemorate
frames are still there.
Yes. So to commemorate those paintings, they still have the original.
So now the theft has become art that people pay to go see.
Yeah, I say that of they pay to go see. I don't know if you all are connecting. The connection in my mind was that there are 13 pieces, and those are valued at $500 million.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a lot of money. Mm-hmm. I think that speaks to the quality of the collection, if you think about it, right? That's only 13 of the pieces. Do you want to take a guess at how many paintings are in this collection?
14.
Wait,
I was going
to say the same thing.
That would be the best.
There's like just one.
There's just one thing that's left.
It's like all the guys were like, man, we're not stealing that one.
I like it. No, that's not right. Guess a number. If you were
122.
Cool. Great.
45.
Great. 7,500 paintings.
Whoa!
7,500 paintings as a part of this collection.
Storage is what you're saying.
Yes. Absolutely. Well, I don't have this in my notes here, but as a part of Isabella Stewart Gardner's will, the museum.
Did she own these paintings?
Yes. This is her personal collection. Thank you. You're drawing the connections for me.
My word.
This is her personal collection.
She's a patron of the arts.
Thank you. Great. Thank you. But also, as a part of her will, she set aside $1 million in 1924. So that's worth a gajillion now. But also, as a part of her will, said that the pieces of art can't be moved in the museum. So wherever they were
Tell
left.
that to the thieves.
That's exactly right. But like as a part of the museum, they're not able to move those paintings around. That's
so
part of her
she
will.
not only donated it, but she designed it, and part of her will was like, "Don't you dare move this."
Yes, if I'm not mistaken, this was her house that she lived in.
Okay.
I'm trying to remember.
I can see that. You know, people coming in like fiddling with all your stuff.
Yeah, and especially if it is literally your house.
Yeah.
What's it called when there's like a space in the middle of the house and it's like an open ceiling.
An atrium.
Yeah, so they have that. There's an atrium in the middle with like this kind of Greco-Roman style like tile and like designs on the ground.
Beautiful.
Anyway, it's really, really cool. But apparently it was her and her husband's house, which was then decked out with all of this, all these paintings, sculpture, furniture. I said 7,500. I'll just read 7,500 paintings, sculptures, furniture, textiles, silver, and ceramics. So I'm slightly overstating. Those aren't all paintings. 1,500 rare books and 7,000 archival objects from ancient Rome, medieval Europe, Renaissance, Italy, and from a bunch of other places too.
So where did she get her money? You know?
So she was the heir to a fortune from her both of her parents. Both of her parents worked in the linen trade. Would you ever expect linen to be the thing that makes you a ton of money? But
somebody's making money on sheets.
Apparently in the early 19th century, because she was born in 1840. So I don't know when her parents died. Her family's of Scottish descent, fortune in the Irish linen trade. There were also some mining investments that they had. So that's on the one side.
I mean, that makes sense. A lot of people were like miners back then. You changed the sheets way more often.
Yes,
like it was just a dirtier time.
Yeah.
People were just dirtier.
She also married her husband, Jack Gardner. So again, Isabella Stewart was the name she was born with. And then when she married, she became Isabella Stewart Gardner. So took on the last name Gardner. Made money through shipping. His father made money from shipping pepper, I want to say, to the States. And then he eventually had just a global shipping company.
The spice must flow, maybe.
Is that Dune? Is that what's happening right now? When does that movie come out?
Oh, I'm excited.
Are you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because the Blade Runner he did was so good.
I'm not.
It was
convinced.
atmospheric.
I think Blade Runner is actually bad.
You didn't like the new Blade Runner?
I think I was distracted by the visuals of the movie to ignore that there's no story in it.
That's the whole point.
Okay, but that's boring.
I mean, the visuals were quite beautiful.
Yeah, sure, but like I can go see paintings. AJ, in fact, owns a. What's the print that you have? That's from the original Blade Runner, though, isn't it?
Yep, it's a Tim Doyle print of the original.
Yeah. So anyway, that's an option.
Which, by the way, speaking of patrons of the arts, I actually patronized Tim Doyle. He just opened up. So Tim, if you're listening, discounts.
Good.
He just opened up COVID patronage, so I bought a watercolor painting.
Cool.
I commissioned one.
What when you say COVID patronage, that's just like a separate.
He's stuck at home, so he's drawing, and he's making some money from his drawings. So
Cool. I dig it. Okay, so where are we right now? We are with Isabella Stewart Gardner. She is wealthy. She both inherited wealth and also her husband had made money as well. They have a bunch of money. There's a whole sad story I'm not going to go into. They had no children, and this was a thing that put her into a depression that she eventually came out of. The thing that brought her out of that depression was support of the arts. It was a year in Europe, traveling around, seeing beautiful works.
I'll do it.
Is what reawakened her to like hope for life.
Cool.
They had no children, and I think those are tied together. Of her having no children gave her freedom of time and money to spend on other things. Again, this ultimately leads to 7,500 paintings, sculptures, and furniture, 1,500 rare books, 7,000 archival objects.
So she spent her life collecting and buying and cultivating this collection.
Yes. And I would say yes on the support of the art itself, but then also intended to eventually gift that to the city when you think about it.
I mean, go to any major American city and you get this story. There's a big house turned museum in Houston with the same kind of story. I'm sure here in Austin, the Blanton has a big donation from families. I mean, it's just like, it's you wonder if that's still a thing.
Of if it's amassing the large collection.
Yeah, or if you still have that, just because now I think a lot of people think of art as an investment,
right?
Or you hear people talk about art as an investment.
Yeah.
You just wonder if if in our generation, when the art collectors are going to donate it to museums, or if they're going to have these families are going to auction it off for whatever. I don't know.
I guess there's no way of knowing, and even to tell the story of one person who's collecting art isn't to say that all art collectors did this, right?
That's true. Yeah.
Some people keep private collections and keep them private. But yeah, I think that's a piece of the story that's interesting is that, yes, she had an amount of wealth. Yes, she amassed a collection for herself, but with the eventual goal of sharing that with others, bringing others into it. The other side of it is that from working with artists, she eventually developed enough relationships to have paintings done of herself, right? There's also the side of it of her commissioning the work of artists to commemorate her.
Did she work with anybody well-known?
I don't have the list in front of me. I believe...
Pollock.
I mean, that wouldn't be... Wait, hold on. Pollock and a Time Machine. No. So I don't have those names in front of me. But for whatever it's worth, I believe some of the paintings of her are not only in her museum.
Gotcha.
I mean that as a way of saying like there's a quality to them where they're kept in other museams as well.
Gotcha.
I'm
so
using
it's
that
not
as a
just a
proxy.
vanity project.
Yes.
Not just a vanity project.
Right. I actually didn't expect to talk about Isabella Stewart this long.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's fine. But there's a painting of her at the museum that's striking for, it's her dressed in black with this light behind her. And it for knowing a little bit about her story, it is interesting for the sadness of her life plus the hope that she eventually walked into her life. It's recorded as one of like the important paintings that are there. So if you look it up and it's someone famous who painted it, then I'll feel dumb. What's the point that I'm getting to here? This family, the Gardner family, amassed a large amount of wealth, but the purpose of that wealth didn't only stay with them. It wasn't only for their comfortable lifestyle, though they traveled. I mean, they had a nice house. There was comfort to their life. But it was for using that wealth to improve the city around them, the space around them, and specifically to improve the lives of artists as they were collecting and buying works from them, right, to trade in that. This is meant as an introduction into an entry into our topic of patronage, that Isabella specifically, but Isabella and Jack together were patrons of the arts. I guess when I use that term, I mean that they supported the arts, that they were supporting the lifestyles of people making good work. Is there a better definition of patronage as we go into?
I mean, we use it as a pejorative term now.
Like
don't patronize me.
Yeah,
sure. I was going to say, or political patronage. It typically means like a graft. To go back to that, grift. Sorry. See, wait, hold on. I'll get this right. Thanks. Don't mess with me. And now I'm like, I can't remember which one it is. So maybe there's a negative connotation that's there too for patronizing.
But I mean, like, my wife and I, back when you could, we had season tickets to the symphony, and they make reference to thank you for patronizing the arts, even in our little humble symphony season tickets.
Yeah.
But
That's interesting. Even in theater, you can just buy season tickets. That's a fine option, but usually you'll pair that with a donation, and you don't get.
But they don't say that at the movie theater. Like when you go to
great.
watch a blockbuster, they're not like, "Thank you, patrons."
And why would those be different?
Maybe there's a connotation of just like taste or quality of art or whatever.
Or middleman, right?
Yeah.
If I'm paying an art dealer, I wouldn't say I'm patronizing the arts. I'm not paying the artist directly. If I purchase someone or if I like pay a director to make a film to my desires, that is patronizing the arts, I think.
So, that's interesting.
If I'm a producer,
Yeah.
I would say I'm a patron. If I'm simply a person who goes to see it,
Then you're just
people use the term patrons to describe, people who attend movies and people who attend things,
or who attend galleries.
or to attend galleries, right?
Yeah.
But I would say that maybe it's the middleman that makes the difference.
So
I'm not sure it matters
the
much.
patron is the person that sort of helps bring the vision to life through either finances, but just also some sort of support.
It feels like one of those words that is going to change meanings depending on where and how it's used.
Because if you go to a
shades of
library,
meaning.
you're called a patron, right?
Is that true?
Yeah.
Oh.
Don't they say that in the PA systems? Like, attention patrons, the library is closing.
I've heard it in like grocery stores, and I ain't patronizing no cows.
Well, we do this all the time. I got an email today saying that my broker got bought by a bigger broker, and it was like, welcome to the whatever the broker's name. I'll just give it a name.
Blaze.
Yeah, welcome to the Blaze family. And I was like, I'm so proud to be part of the Blaze family, the giant broker's family.
Sure. Don't all companies? I usually think of that as employee languages, right? One big family.
I don't know. Why don't you just cheapen family? Why don't you?
Oh, wow. There's a topic. Okay.
Anyway.
Okay. This is fair of saying that there are different definitions that we could use here. I think a point that you all are pulling on of the amount of engagement with the art is probably a helpful.
Because when I think of true patronage, it is. I think of that Renaissance, either for the vanity of the patron or the person actually believes in the artist's vision or what they're doing, and then says, "Well, I want to make sort of this vision come to life." So.
Right.
There's something of the whims or wishes of the patron in the patronage, right?
Yeah.
Like I will put myself in a painting of the crucifixion, like standing there being like, "Whoa, look at this!"
Yeah.
Or like have them paint my family or have them paint something in my house, right? I'm purchasing their work partially for my vision. If my vision coincides with theirs, that's a different issue.
That's interesting. Let's see if we can connect some of these things. So we've used a more modern example to start off. It's hard to, when I think patronage, the first thing that comes to mind is the Medicis for me because I'm a nerd or whatever.
You were a banker.
I was a banker, and the Medicis also founded a large bank.
Isn't that what they teach you? Isn't like
it's actually interesting.
The first thing you learn is about the Medicis when you go to business school?
No, but
I've never been,
JP Morgan, the man, I talk about Gardner in the beginning here, but JP Morgan also has a house in New York that you can go to that is like the Gardner residence. It's his collection of art. It's also his house. One of the rooms is designed with a Sienese, like from Siena, Italy, a Sienese seal of. I don't know if it's the Bank of the Medicis are from Florence, so it wouldn't be Sienese. But anyway, just to say, it's some Sienese bank logo is what he's decorated this entire room with. Why did I say that?
That's hilarious.
Oh, because I used to be a banker. So there's connections here between all these things. So anyway, that house is very, very cool. So if you're ever in New York, go check that out. And if you're in Boston,
do we have to do that now that the camera's on? Do we have to look at it?
Podcast listener.
Oh, whoops.
You would have no way of knowing that there's a video.
I am in a whole new kettle of fish, boys.
I don't know what that means. We'll connect all of these things in a second. So there's a part here that I have not personally been able to understand. So I'll start talking and then we'll see if we can connect these things. The Medicis are one of the longest running, most successful, until they weren't, families in Italy, based in Florence, I guess is I'm overstating because they eventually are all over Italy, but they have a family dynasty that lasts from the 13th century through the 18th century. It's, what is that, 500 years of prominence. 4 members of the family end up becoming popes. Multiple become dukes and duchesses.
Seems legit.
Oh, that's interesting.
So they were a holy family.
Certainly 4 of those men were the holiest men. Like,
Yeah,
just
that's what I was going to say.
that's family tradition.
You can
guys.
either be, because like, yeah, I mean, my family is not Catholic, but if my son grew up to be Pope, it'd be like, well, that's pretty cool. Like I'd be
A
pretty
good church-going banker
That's
family.
exactly right. But, I do not know the details of these Medici's becoming Pope. I'm sure there is much more to it. So anyway, I'm sure we'll get a wonderful email about that.
They just did good things in the world.
Yeah, exactly. And they were respected for their virtue. It's kind of like that story from the Decameron about what's the guy who was a super sinner and he wanted to ask for forgiveness. I like that story a lot. It's the guy goes to the priest and he's like, "Hey, Father, I need forgiveness." And he's like, "I did a horrible thing." And the priest is like, "What'd you do?" And the guy goes, "I stole a penny." Like he said, he do you remember this? You told the story. He admits to some really small crime, some very small sin, and the priest.
And didn't he have to like pray for a while? And
sure. And then the priest like thinks he's a holy man, and so then the funeral for him is like celebrating him as a holy man.
Oh, that's right. And he was.
You did this episode. I'm terrified right now.
Well, no, I'm tried. There are a few about like people paying penance and having to pray, and so you're thinking of the one guy that
he
came
tricks
to
the
like
priest.
he was a horrible person.
Yes,
and
but tricked
he
the
had all these
and he
tricks.
tricked the priest to give him a holy
and then
funeral.
eventually they regard him as a saint, and the whole community is like, this guy was saintly when really he was just a terrible liar.
Yeah, scumbag.
Sounds like he was a great liar.
I mean,
A
it worked,
terrible
right?
person
Terrible
and
person
liar.
who was a liar. Anyway, so the Medici's initially gained their wealth from selling textiles. That's that's where
Just like Gardner.
Yes. Wait, hold on. We're on to something here. And then they eventually will found the Medici Bank out of that. And this makes them even more fabulously wealthy than they were. I'll read just a list of things so they make all this money. That's part number one. But then the question is, what do they do with that money, right? An option would be just to spend it on themselves. I'm sure they had a lavish lifestyle. But in addition to that, the Medici family was involved in financing. They did not themselves. Anyway, they were involved in the financing of the piano. That seems like kind of a cool thing.
You mean like the invention of the piano?
The invention of the piano. The piano. We have that because of the Medici's, in part. The construction of St. Peter's Basilica. They were involved in. They were patrons of Botticelli, Da Vinci, Michelangelo, Raphael, Machiavelli, Galileo, among others. What'd you say?
Splinter?
I said
Shredder. Yeah.
Krang.
Is that the guy with the brain in his belly?
Yeah,
That,
Krang.
good.
And then what's the other one? Bebop and Rocksteady?
Bebop, yeah.
Also Italian.
Great, good. Yep.
Bebop.
All of them.
Have I ever talked to you about how I thought the Ninja Turtles was an interesting discussion about immigration? Mm-hmm. Or about, and just
No.
Maybe that's another episode.
just like integrating, how much do you take from the homeland? How much do you put into your American spin on it?
No, it's 4 turtles who want to eat pizza. Isn't that the
Shredder
entire-
wanted them to honor their heritage, but the Ninja Turtles just wanted to do American things. It's all there.
I don't think it is. They in reading about the Medici's, one question is why, when I say Renaissance, I mean Italian Renaissance, in case that matters to anyone. And there's a question of why the Italian Renaissance happened, when it did, and where it did. And one way of answering that question is
Patronage.
The wealth of the Medici's concentrated in Florence created a culture of additional patronage. The Medici's were so powerful, if people wanted to please the Medici's to get some kind of favor, they would try and play the same game, right? So
or the Medici's would, the way that they showed their power was by wielding patronage and commissioning artworks. And so if you wanted to appear also just as rich, you did the same thing, even if you couldn't afford it.
There was gardens as well. They would sponsor public gardens or big, that had shows of wealth.
Mm-hmm. I thought of that example.
Having fountains was real hard.
I didn't look up the name, but there are these beautiful gardens in Spain that are that. It's they were either royal gardens or they were private. They were meant only for one family. But upon death, it's a gift to the city. It's a gift for all people to go and enjoy. I'm sure.
Yeah, what are those gardens called? They're on top of a little hill.
That sounds right.
Shoot.
And I'm sure there are a bunch in Italy too. But it's all the same idea that we're getting at. So what am I saying?
You could build it in Civilization 4.
I don't think I ever played Civilization 4.
Oh, dude.
Sorry. I tried 5 and never finished a game of it. So sorry. And then I quit video games. So sorry.
Alhambra?
That's a building.
That's a fort. Yeah, never mind.
that Alhambra?
I thought it was a garden.
There might be a garden attached to it.
Anyway.
We're going to get emails about this one. What's the point? So the Medicis made a bunch of money, but there are lots of rich people in history who we don't remember the name of, right? Merchants aren't like, we don't sit around and say, oh, those great merchants. Like, we're so thankful that they made money.
Because they weren't patrons?
Well, because they didn't. So like the Jack Stewart, who I told you about before, you ever heard of the Stewarts because of Jack Gardner? Do you know about the pepper trade from the 19th century? Like, even though it made this family wealthy, does that matter?
Yeah, it's not on my robber baron flashcard. So.
Thank you. Good. It doesn't really matter 200 years later, as opposed to work that the Medicis put in. Potentially launched the Renaissance and provided like the most important paintings, writings, thought, even by supporting Galileo, scientific.
Didn't they sponsor the Duomo, the cathedral in Florence? Was that them?
Is that the Santa Maria del Fiore? No. What's that?
I think maybe.
The Santa Maria del Fiore is...
Oh, no.
That's the Florence Cathedral.
I think it might be. Oh. It's the Florence Cathedral.
Brunelleschi.
Brunelleschi's dome, yeah.
Yes.
Okay,
so they
stripes.
Yes.
And also the... what is it called? The doors of the gates of paradise. It was a beautiful carved door that Rodin responded to later.
Yeah, and that's in giving only like the top highlights. Again, it's like essentially anything from the 13th century of Florence to the 18th century. The Medicis were probably involved in, right? Like they just had a lot of involvement in all of those things. But I don't know. How often do you talk about the Medici Bank? Like it's hard to imagine that would have lasted beyond its time without them putting that investment into art and things that would last beyond. A point AJ raised before that I want to make sure not to move past is that also, I don't know if you all have this association of I typically think of patrons as like silent partners in the business context. Like they give money and then the artist kind of does whatever they want to, and then like. That's there's not a partnership there. That would not have been true. The patrons were very involved in the work of either the art itself in commissioning literal pieces, right? Make a painting of me, right?
It was a commodity. The artisans of the Middle Ages, the artists were not. I don't know if there was this like artistic temperament. They could paint and they could paint well, and they knew the technicals of it. A lot of it was geometry, and so they sold their abilities. They didn't have to get into a poetic mood to do it.
Right.
They had to gather snails and mash them up and make the pigments and then do the job because they're supposed to paint on a floor.
Right.
That's what they had to do.
But there's this recognition of, you just crushing up your snails and then going out to the market probably isn't going to get you a living, right? Like you wouldn't be able to survive just on that. And so there is some amount of help that's needed, but there's something in return for that, right? You're providing a service for a wealthy, powerful family like the Medicis or whoever else your patron is. I forget who I think Michelangelo at some point might have been patronized or whatever the term would be by the Pope at the time. Like
that's what the Sistine Chapel came out of.
Yeah. And that's where like you get there's this whole social level to it that I'm not really going to go into of like, who patronizes the work determines your social status, determines like almost the success of the project, right? Regardless,
it's
almost separate from quality.
It's a quick explanation.
Yes.
Like if the people that have the most cultivated tastes are the rich and cultured, right? The cultured weren't the artists, the cultured were the wealthy, right? That had the ability to like not work and cultivate their manners and read and learn and be educated, then their discernment in choosing you, especially if they were the most wealthy, like if they had the most money to spend, they can buy the greatest artist. Right. And so when they choose you, it legitimizes you, right?
But it works both ways, isn't it?
Yeah.
But that's the interesting.
It's a symbiotic relationship, right?
Sure.
You bring your great art to them and make them look good. They bring their taste to you.
Yes.
And so you get the social standing of being the best artist around because the richest people chose you, right?
So there's probably rich people that patronize, like who had really bad taste and patronized artists that could give them something really bad, or they were like they wanted to patron but they were still cheap, so they like got like instead of Michelangelo they got like his kid brother who couldn't do it very much.
Michael?
Yeah.
No, they're the ones who got
and it was
Shredder.
like instead of painting a beautiful Sistine Chapel, like I want like I don't know, dirty humor jokes in my toilet or something,
Sure,
right?
Yeah.
And those things just don't last. So I'm sure that money flew around,
Yes.
but we just don't have them anymore because at some point someone was like, ooh, this is gaudy, and got rid of it.
So a good example from modern day would be like Bugatti. So to bring cars in. Bugatti makes like rolling pieces of art. Those cars are incredible. 1,500
this is a
horsepower.
car?
Yeah, it's a car.
Yeah. I thought it was a
1,500 horsepower. They go 300 miles an hour. Those
Right.
things are insane.
Yes.
They cost like $5 million a piece. So they make only a few, right? They bring some sort of like legitimacy to the people who purchase them, right? If I drive a Bugatti, I look really good. Makes me look like I have good taste. And Bugatti exists because rich people are willing to buy their works of art, right? So it's a symbiotic relationship. Bugatti gets a lot of money for the car legitimizes the people who buy it.
What's my Toyota RAV4?
Much lower.
It's like when your niece paints a rock and hands it to you.
Hey, that is but it's useful.
Yeah, sure. You can hold down a piece of paper with it.
Yeah,
exactly
yeah.
So you have do you call this car a paperweight? Is that what just happened right there?
Maybe.
Okay, just want to make sure
It's
I heard
a
that.
painted
Great.
paperweight. It's a little
good.
bit better.
It's a step above.
It's a heavy car.
Wait, what? Again, associations that I have. So first would have been that kind of silent partner relationship. That would not be what a patron, depends on your time period and depends on the patron, but that's not typically what is happening in that situation. I think the other one is that, so the other association I have is that, a patron, if they're involved, would be like distracting from the project itself. Like they're a negative influence on the project whenever they get involved. And maybe, again, you all are better
Like
people.
one of
than
the Medici's being like, make me buffer.
Yes, exactly. or
All
even
the muzzles.
or they'll say, the shade of blue you're using for the sky is wrong, even though it's the right one. That's it more a sign of bad taste, maybe, to use AJ's example from before. There's a story I heard a long time ago that I don't know if it's true. It's probably all apocryphal. But when Michelangelo was finishing up the David, he was working on it, and then one of his patrons comes in and looks at it and says, hey, have you noticed the nose doesn't look quite right? Michelangelo looks at it and he goes, he realizes the nose is perfect. But the patron's saying, it doesn't look quite right. Can you take a little bit off the nose, maybe make it a little smaller? It looks a little too big right now. And so Michelangelo goes up to the statue and he takes his chisel and he makes the motion as if he's cutting off or tapping off part of the nose. But what he's doing is he's hitting it off to the side to brush up some dust into the air to make it look like he's making some changes
a
to
noise.
it.
Clang, clang,
Yeah,
clang.
exactly. All right. So to make it look like he's making that noise and kind of make it sound like that, to then turn back to his patron and say, oh, well, thank you for that wonderful advice. Doesn't this look so much better? Even though he didn't actually take the advice.
So he's just good at managing his patrons.
Yes, well, that's the version of the story I've heard. As far as I can tell, it never happened. And also, I think AJ's point is more spot on, is that there is the acquisition of wealth is not only you now have more money, it is a social standing as well, probably even especially 500 years ago as compared to today. And so you would, again, this is not everyone. There are still boorish rich people at all periods of time. But that you are, especially in a dynasty like the Medici's, you're raised up into a certain taste and social standing, and then to which you would trust a Medici over a new artist. Does that make sense? Is that
A
fair
new
thing?
artist or a new patron?
New artist.
So as an artist, you probably also wanted Medici to back you as
Yes.
opposed to
because you'll probably learn something more.
Grumpio,
Yes,
the
exactly.
Grumpio bank family.
Yes. Oh yeah, the one down the street. Yeah, I love the Grumpios.
High rates, those guys.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, I think we actually still see this, right? We look to famous people. Like I can't help but think of that song "Gucci Gang," Gucci Gang, Gucci Gang, Gucci Gang. Right?
You can't help but think of that.
Please help yourself.
They're
Please.
talking about Gucci. They are still, in a way, the tastemakers, right?
Yes, interesting.
Like people sing about high cost brands all the time,
Yeah.
and so they as the wealthy are saying this stuff is the stuff that's valuable, and
Yeah.
so we the poors, I'm a poor, would be like, okay, the thing to aspire to is Gucci. It's
But
to
if you're
have
a
all
lu-
these things, and people spend money on it.
But if you're a luxury brand, you're in a difficult situation wherein you want that exposure. But if you churn out tons of Gucci stuff, eventually you're not going to have that mystique anymore.
But that's the thing, is the way you get that exposure is by doing what the artist did, which is by getting adopted by the most wealthy. If I run a luxury brand, I don't make 1,000 handbags. I get Kanye to give his wife one of my handbags for a gift. One single product, enough to make me famous, right? They have the taste, I have the artistry. It's a symbiotic relationship. It still happens.
I don't know all the details because
You're not well versed in Gucci Gang?
I was going to say an example I'm trying to look it up. I think they've been acquired, if I'm looking at this correctly. Coach. This is what happened.
Coach bags.
This is what happened to Coach. Originally had more of a luxury association, overproduce things. I think they have like an outlet kind of model also, which if you're really high end, you wouldn't have. And that kind of undermined it, right? That it wasn't worth the high price. At some point, it just became about the quality of the bag itself.
But if you're a luxury brand, why would you call yourself Coach?
Yeah, right.
I fly first class.
You want to start a fashion label called First Class?
Well, that's just
Maybe that's like
more.
labeling your
That's just
whiskey
tacky.
fancy whiskey.
Yeah,
Yeah.
That's not good.
It's really, you can trust that one. A thing maybe for us to talk about after this episode.
rich water.
I think that might sell though. Have you seen Smart Water? I mean, how far off is that? Well, I'm smart. I drink Smart Water. Sorry, all you Smart Water drinkers. So a thing that I have not totally reconciled in thinking through all of this is that, there's like the association between like the popularity of a thing and the quality of a thing. Because in some level, what we're saying would lead to, if more people like it, connect with it, whatever, they will buy it. But not all popular things are good. Does that make sense? And this is maybe a small niggling point, but I just, it's kind of a question I have with this. And there are also tastemakers who we don't agree with or don't trust or whatever. So anyway, maybe a topic for sometime later.
But also the Medicis are operating in a time before you had as sort of ubiquitous or deeply entrenched market forces like you do now in the modern art world.
Yeah.
So right now we've got things geared towards, product and scale and selling, whereas in, 14th century Italy, you don't have those same sort of market forces for the artist, in the artist world.
And even I hadn't thought of it till you said that. There's the connection to your city. You are commissioning a work for your city to increase the renown of your city. There's an honor element to it of you want your city to be well respected and you want to be the top of the heap.
Right, against those nasty Guelphs.
Yeah, right. And so you care.
Or Ghibellines.
Yeah, that's interesting. I hadn't thought about that. But there's something to that, like face-to-face interaction of it, of the person you're supporting and you're directly doing that for them. Okay, so where are we right now? Patrons are great. They do great work. And I forget where I heard this.
Well, and of course, that sort of model is the internet has now made that model more available for everything.
Yeah, that's probably the right segue out of this topic. So what historically has been the purview of only a few. Again, the Medici family, a few other very successful. You said robber barons before, so some equivalent of that.
Something less pejorative.
Barons. I don't know. What do you want me to say? Rich people, right? People.
Entrepreneurs.
It's not only that, because if you're an 800-year dynasty, only the first ones are the entrepreneurs.
Fair.
Inherited wealth. So a thing that historically has been only for the wealthiest of the wealthiest. Again, someone who had $1 million in 1924 to leave to this, like in addition to gifts that she gave to her family. That was Isabella Stewart Gardner from the beginning.
Yeah, had obviously invested in, or obviously had the taste in something that had the staying power, so that when a tiny fraction of it got stolen, it was, 130 times the original.
I didn't make that connection, and I should have said it earlier. If 13 of those pieces are worth $500 million, again, and they probably got the most expensive ones, like I acknowledge that. But again, if you have 16,000 other things they could have stolen. You know what I mean? Like the value of that collection is almost innumerable, other than the fact that I literally just counted it. And it is now for anyone to go and visit if you're up in Boston. With that. Okay, so what used to be you had to acquire that kind of collection to then give to a city so that people could go visit is a thing that on the internet anyone can be a part of, can access, can be part of supporting, right? I think most common place where that happens now is on Patreon. I'm not doing a history of Patreon because that would be weird. But I guess I'll just say this and then we can jump in from there. This episode is in service of announcing that we are launching a Patreon, I guess as of this episode.
That's right.
So technically 4 days.
All you little Medicis out there.
But I think the point being drawn out there is that I love the interactions that we have with our listeners.
Yes.
I love the emails that we get back and forth. It is
love the memes.
Yeah, I love the memes. And even
little twits on the Twitters.
Yes, people who reply to us, who say things that they find helpful. I love all that stuff. But we want a community that is involved in helping shape what classical stuff will be from here on out.
That's right.
Isn't that this isn't just some passive thing, but we want to both give something to our community and then also have a shaping influence, right? That people will be helping us as we grow.
Classical education is, I don't know if it's saying it's a needed thing makes it sound a little too utilitarian, but it is a worthy cause. It is a noble undertaking. Let's put it that way.
I think that's fair. So I guess I can just say to people that you can go to patreon.com/classical stuff, patreon.com/classical stuff. You'll see all of the information on there about signing up to become a patron of the podcast. Should I go through all of the...
Yeah, I think
go through the tiers in case
and then also the emphasis on that these are early days, and this you also can help shape and guide the growth of what we're doing as well.
Yeah. So again, this is totally voluntary, right? This isn't a compulsory thing. If you want to be involved, if you want to
your name to resound through history, then
But if you're looking at the equipment, this is all personal stuff. We three pay for the website. We three bought our microphones and all of the gear and all that stuff, and it costs a pretty penny. So if you want to I don't know, maybe reward us for our work is one way to think about it. The other way to think about it is push us forward. This is the first episode where we have a camera up. Here's looking at YouTube. And our ultimate goal here is to have several cameras and then being able for me to switch around on them, and that way give you a better viewing and listening experience. The more we get from the podcast, the more we can put into the podcast, the more time we can commit, the more attention we can commit.
Because we hit a natural sort of a natural homeostasis of what we could do. And if we want to keep going forward, we need a little bit of help.
Yes, exactly.
That's fair.
We need a patron.
Yeah, I was going to say afterwards for us to talk through some other changes. AJ just covered most of them right there.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's
I didn't
fine.
mean to steal your thunder.
No, it's fine. It's all of our thunder. The other thing, he said this.
There's
but
a T-shirt. It's all of our thunder.
The other thing to say is that our episodes are now up on YouTube. At the time that you're listening, at least up through episode 113.
That's right. We've got little busy elves working in the background.
Yep. Yes, and these are things that have been worked on over the
cronies.
Thank you. That makes me the crony. I don't like that. So stuff we've been working on during quarantine.
Thomas is being modest. It's the stuff that he worked on.
That's right.
He's put all the episodes up. As of now, we just have paintings on most of our episodes, but in the future, we're going to have video. And you can see us record.
So if you're interested in that, you can find us on YouTube. Classical Stuff You Should Know. It's a great name. You should search for it. And I already said the Patreon is patreon.com/classical stuff. I'll go through what the different tiers are on there. AJ just shared a few of the reasons that this is helpful for us. First off is, again, helping us in moving forward of equipment on the equipment side. And then as we get into the tiers, you'll see shaping of topics is also helpful there. So there are 3 different tiers as a part of the Patreon. The $5 a month tier will give you access to all previous episodes ad-free. I guess that's another thing that we are talking about and exploring is adding advertising to the podcast. So look for that in the future. And if you're interested in advertising, send us an email, theguys@classicalstuff.net. Yep, nailed it. theguys@classicalstuff.net. Took me a second. So you'll get access to all previous episodes without ads. You will also get access to additional talks from AJ Graham and I. These include AJ and Graham's excellent keynote presentations. There is an annual conference through Veritas, and there are at least 3 or 4 years of audio that I was able to find. I'm sure you all have more stuff than that. But all of that audio will be included on the Patreon. So if you want to hear us talk about dating advice from Romeo and Juliet, or what's a good one? Your logical fallacies one is great, but we've also done a podcast episode on that. But anyway, you can find all of that at the $5 a month level. At $10 a month, I am most proud of this tier because it's called the Nightmare tier, and I'm glad we can. I just want that to live there forever.
I can't remember who said it. But.
Yeah, me neither. Graham. You get all of the $5 a month benefits. In addition, you will get access to additional conversations that we will have before and or after our episodes.
It's the banter tier.
This is the banter tier.
Ooh, what do we call Classical Stuff at Night.
Yeah.
Or Unplugged.
Classical Stuff Unplugged. Classical Stuff Unplugged. As video, you can see we are.
Yep.
Anyway,
this is the first one. There's banter before and after these episodes. We always take breaks in between recording, and you can hear all the stuff we talk about. Yeah.
So if you enjoy the banter, you're going to love this tier. In addition, we have monthly Ask Us Anything. Anyway, my question was if it's still an AMA, if it's a group of people. So anyway, weigh in, please.
At the guys at classicalstuff.net.
We have a new email address. I don't know if we've acknowledged
Yeah,
it.
and I mean, kind of think of it like mailbag, right? It
Yes.
doesn't just have to be questions. If you want to send us comments or whatever, we can do reactions, I guess.
So, that, actually, kind of like, again, did we say this already on air? Of send us you said YouTube video reactions or whatever.
Whatever you want to send, like at that tier, send us whatever you want to send. You are welcome to interact with us, and then we'll have special episodes that are just
for
us
you.
interacting with the mailbag and the things that you've sent us.
Yes, exactly. So that is at the $10 a month level. At the $20 a month level, this again is more where we are looking for your input. We're looking for you to help us specifically in coming up with future topic ideas. So we would, at this level, we would be asking you all to vote on future topics or to submit future topic ideas. So for you to help us, what are things that you would like to hear the three of us describe? And then in addition, I think AJ has talked most about this, of wanting there to be Classical Stuff merch. And so we would like help on those future designs of, we would post things and then again, get voting from you all to help us figure out kind of what that future looks like.
So help guide the podcast, right? Determine its future.
And I know Graham is working on a couple of ideas that I think at the $20 a month level, we'd be looking for input from people there.
Yeah. I mean, the idea being some basically going through great works of literature and putting together video primers. So if you're a first-time teacher and they were like, you got to teach Paradise Lost, and you're like, oh gosh, I don't even know where to start. Or if you're just reading this book for a book club or for your own enjoyment, if you said, I wish I had some help in sort of how do I even begin thinking about this kind of thing? We want to put together a whole catalog of some of the great works of us talking about them.
So that'll be at the.
But that's a big thing to do. So this is why this patronage is so cool.
It is, and so important and helpful for us. So again, there's a side of it where that money helps us in doing the work that we do here, also in helping shape where we go from here. Especially topics and merch and all that fun stuff. So that's all patreon.com/classical stuff. Again, we're moving toward wrapping up this episode. Just you all listening is a huge honor, and I appreciate that. But for some of you, we've even gotten questions on Twitter asking how people can support us.
I'm actually not only just listening, but questions just inquiring of our health during the crisis, knowing that we're in Austin, Texas, and Texas has been a hot spot, and so that's been very touching just to that people listen and think about us.
Care and
care, right?
And so we are looking forward to jumping back into this.
Absolutely.
All right, boys, any classical stuff we got wrong over the past 90 days? 6 months. Whoever
I put to sleep with my episodes, I guess that was wrong.
Aww.
They were good.
They were good. I like
them. Classical stuff we got wrong. I can't think. I'm sure there's something.
Being off the air for so long, I think is the most.
That is definitely something.
We
got
wrong.
Hey, we're back and we got big things going. So
cool. All right,
happy to be back.
This has been Classical Stuff You Should Know with Graham, AJ, and Thomas. Thank you for listening, and we will catch you next week. Same classical time, same classical channel.
Yep. Bye.
Bye.